Diesel fumes drifted through the faded curtains as laughter hit like glass, breaking my mother announcing I'd retired early while the table went silent. I'm Elias Mercer, in my 50s, a Navy officer, long in the shadows. The pocket watch in my palm ticked steady against the noise. What happens when silence is mistaken for surrender? The kitchen in Wharton was too warm for a blazer, but I kept mine buttoned as if fabric alone could shield me. The Sunday table was crowded the way it had been for decades, wood paneling dull with smoke, curtains bleached by sun, coffee rings marking the formica. Mom leaned in, her smirk, tight fork paused midair. "He retired early," she announced loud enough for everyone. The laughter clinked off dishes and silverware rattled louder than the diesel trucks groaning past the window. My pocket watch sat in my palm under the table lid, snapped firm, tick steady against my fingers. No one else could hear it. They heard Grant instead. He had flown in crisp and perfect in his white shoes shining bright enough to make the floor look dirty. He raised his glass. "Too early retirement," he said with a grin, as if the line belonged in the family script. Lauren laughed on cue, high and practiced. I smiled politely the way I always had. My job in the family was to carry plates, not make speeches. The tea in front of me had gone lukewarm while I kept my hands busy. Mom sipped coffee's sharp perfume of cigarettes clinging to her hair. She tapped ash into a saucer and shook her head. "You had the brains, sweetheart, but not the drive for command." Grant leaned back, ribbons catching the weak light. "Dad says I've got command presence." His voice carried easy confidence, the kind that turned every story into a tale of near misses and triumphs. Lauren's hand rested on his arm, polished smile intact. I cleared dishes, stacking them carefully. Spoon clinks, marking each small silence. The kitchen smelled of toast margarine and the faint diesel drifting through open windows. Their words slid past me, but not without leaving marks. Every remark pressed like a thumb into a bruise that never fully faded. Later that afternoon at the Wharton VFW, the same voices echoed in a bigger hall. Dad's friends clapped Grant on the back, calling him commander already. They talked about his flights, his briefings, his future. My name never left their lips. I stood near the coffee urn, pouring myself a styrofoam cup that tasted reheated 3 times, and let the chatter roll past. The folding chairs squeaked, the ceiling fans hummed slow, and I pretended the bitter taste didn't matter. Mom sat proudly, chin lifted, watching Grant gesture wide with his hands as if conducting the whole room. Someone asked if I was still working computers. I nodded. "Still working," I said simply. That was enough for them. Their eyes slid back to Grant. The watch ticked under my thumb, reliable, steady, unnoticed. Like me. By evening I drove East Highway, heat shimmering above asphalt. The air inside the car smelled of dust and honeysuckle. In the rearview mirror, the house sagged into twilight porch light, buzzing faintly, Dad leaning against the railing with a cigarette that glowed like a tiny warning light. He didn't wave. He never did. Arlington felt colder brick apartment, quiet and spare. I dropped my bag by the door, the watch still ticking in my pocket. My desk lamp lit a stack of folders, edges stamped with red. One envelope lay sealed at the top, heavy in its stillness. The memo weighted its weight louder than any toast or smirk. I held the watch beside it, the tick syncing with my own breath. The kitchen laughter of Wharton still echoed in my ears, but it thinned against the silence of this room. Silence I had learned to trust. I unbuttoned my blazer at last, set the watch on the desk, and stared at the envelope until the lines blurred. The lid of the watch caught the light silver flash against pale walls. The hinge held firm, and the night stretched wide as if daring me to open what lay sealed. Rain slicked the Arlington windows, each streak bending the neon reflections outside into long green smears. I sat in the office after hours, monitor open to a headline I didn't need to read twice. Wharton Chronicle. Leak Commander Grant Mercer, probable lead for Triton. The serif letters stared back with the permanence of print. In the bullpen, 2 colleagues whispered over their screens. Makes sense, one said, careful, but sure. He's the face. Their chair squeaked. No one looked my way. I pressed my thumb into the desk's wood grain, feeling every ridge. At lunch, I had stepped into the corner cafe. On the corkboard by the restrooms, a photo of Grant already hung, sharp uniformed chin, lifted flag blurred behind him. The paper smelled of ink and pushpins. A neon open sign buzzed half dead, above it red glow washing the edges of his smile. I bought coffee I didn't need and stared long enough that the girl behind the counter asked if I wanted cream. Back upstairs, my phone buzzed. Facebook threads from home lit with heart emojis and flag icons. Proud of our boy Grant. Somewhere in the scroll, my name tagged and misspelled. I didn't click. Instead, I slid open the drawer and stacked red-edged prep folders, the paper dry and stiff with official weight. Rows of blacked-out paragraphs hid work that would never fit on a corkboard. Evan from comms stopped by cup sleeve upside down, voice hesitant. Big news about your brother. He looked as if the words burned his tongue. I gave him the line I'd practiced. Congrats to him. Relief loosened his shoulders. He nodded and left. The buzzing light above faded in and out like a hesitant witness. My phone lit again, Lauren this time. Don't take it personal. No punctuation. I typed and deleted 3 different replies before leaving it at busy night. Near 9, the rain thinned to mist. I walked back to the cafe. The corkboard photo gleamed under the repaired neon. Customers chatted about baseball steam from espresso carrying the sharp scent of burnt beans. I touched the photo's curling corner back into place, a gesture no one saw. By the time I returned, the Chronicle's site had refreshed 5 reasons Commander Mercer is the right choice. Photos of Grant in 3 poses. The sidebar read, "His brother works in computers." I closed the tab. Silence settled heavy in the office. The janitor's mop water smelled of bleach. I spread the folders, edges aligned, as steady as the tick of a watch I hadn't brought with me tonight. That steadiness was mine alone. A new email pinged, tone low and final. Subject appointment, Harland. Time 0900. Location Pentagon Side Room C. No flourish, just fact. I shut the monitor down. In the glass, I caught my reflection, a man who looked retired to some, invisible to most, but still here. The rain eased outside, neon letters whole again. Open. Tomorrow, Harland. Tonight, silence. The Pentagon Cafe smelled faintly of burnt coffee, that thin, acrid scent that clung to every table after a long day. Harlan's hand waved me into the corner booth before I could speak. No small talk, no easing into it. His folders were already stacked, edges worn dust clinging to the manila, the way time clings to men like him. The fluorescent above us buzzed, flickering just enough to mark silence. He flipped open a file, my file pages thick with words I'd never seen aloud in print. Operations scrubbed of names, dates, penciled in margins like secret coordinates. He grunted, tapping one line with a finger broad as a hammer. "You've been holding the line for years," he said. His voice had gravel in it, steady but rough. "No noise, no spotlight, but the lights stay on because of you." I sat back, hands folded on the table. The formica was sticky corners chipped. The hum of refrigerators behind the counter filled the pause. He looked at me as if measuring whether silence itself was answer enough. Then he slid a note card across the table. The edges were rough, as if he'd torn it from something larger. In block letters he'd written, "Presence isn't volume. It's reliability." I let my thumb run along the edge of the card, the paper biting faintly into skin. My pocket watch ticked in my other hand, hidden under the table. 2 steady rhythms, one borrowed from brass, one from blood. He leaned closer, the creases in his uniform catching the harsh light. "You're going to be tested, Mercer. Not in the way you know, not in silence. Out there, scrutiny is its own storm. Your brother, he thrives on it. But you—" He stopped, his eyes narrowing. "You'll have to show what reliability looks like when every camera's pointed at you." The coffee on his side cooled, untouched. He pushed it aside, the bitter scent rising sharper. His fingers tapped once against the folder before closing it with a soft thud. "Your record speaks loud enough for me," he said. "Question is whether you'll let it speak for itself when the time comes." I didn't answer. My watch ticked steady, a metronome beneath the table. He noticed the corner of his mouth twitching. "Good. Hold on to that. A man who knows his own timing doesn't need applause." For the first time in months, something shifted inside me, small, ember-like, not yet flame. His words had weight, but it was the card that anchored me. I slipped it into my pocket beside the watch, 2 keepsakes of different kinds, one inherited, one earned. He gathered the folders, dusk lifting in the fluorescent glare. His voice dropped almost to a mutter. "Your family will be in that room." The sentence landed heavier than any commendation. I imagined the table back home smirk with easy laughter at my expense. I imagined their eyes when the truth finally arrived under lights too bright to ignore. He stood without another word, leaving his empty cup and the ghost of burnt coffee behind. His footsteps faded into the hum of the corridor, steady, unhurried. I stayed seated, watch on my palm. The tick was louder now, or maybe I only noticed it more. A countdown had started, even if the numbers weren't written anywhere I could see. The secure wing smelled faintly of metal polish and recycled air, the kind of sterile nothing meant to erase fingerprints and history alike. A PR officer in a pressed suit intercepted me before I could reach the briefing room. His tablet glowed cold blue against the steel corridor. "Commander Grant's better for the stage," he said flatly, not looking up. "Your slot is cut." The words landed harder than his tone. I swallowed once the air sharp in my throat. "I was scheduled." He shook his head, scrolling. "Optics. He's visible. Plays well on camera. We'll find another moment for you." His voice was smooth, but his eyes never met mine. False ally, smiling with corporate polish. The servers hummed low behind the reinforced wall, a mechanical heartbeat that didn't care. My hand drifted to my pocket watch, the hinge clicking as I thumbed it open. For 20 years it had held steady lids snapping shut with a sure clasp. Now, under the weight of his dismissal, the hinge gave a brittle sound. The lid swung free, hanging awkward broken. I closed my fist around it. Metal bit into my palm, the tick muffled but not gone. The PR officer barely noticed. "We'll need your brother on stage in 5, he added, voice already moving past me. Shoes clicked sharp on the tile as he left. I stood still, sterile light washing the hall into pale anonymity. My reflection wavered in the steel panels blazer's straight face, calm inside something cracking as cleanly as the watch. Footsteps approached, slower this time. Harlan's profile appeared, his uniform dark against the glow. He glanced at the broken hinge in my palm and understood without words. "Hold the line," he muttered, voice gravel thick, as if even the servers paused to listen. Then he walked on, not lingering. I entered the planning room alone. Screens glared with graphs and timelines my name once listed in the program now struck through, replaced by Grant's in neat font. The cursor blinked on an empty line where my remarks should have been. The low whir of machines filled the silence like a choir without melody. The sting wasn't in losing a slot, it was in being erased. Paper trails matter in this world. Names written down become truth. Names crossed out become rumor. I set the broken watch on the desk, the lid dangling like a loose tooth. Fingers trembling, I opened a draft window on my terminal. Subject line, contingency. Body, a quiet ledger of Times folders' acknowledgements. Nothing dramatic, just evidence strung together like beads on a wire. Insurance if someone ever tried to bury me deeper. The keys clacked louder than they should have, echoing off the steel walls. Each stroke a defiance I wasn't ready to speak aloud. The cursor blinked at the bottom. I saved, but didn't send. Not yet. The corridor outside was empty when I left the echo of my shoes chasing me down its length. Servers hummed steady, indifferent. The watch ticked uneven in my pocket hinge, loose time still moving whether anyone believed I was there or not. Midnight rain traced crooked lines down the apartment window, each drop magnified by the lamplight. The heater hummed unevenly, rattling as if it too was tired of keeping watch. I leaned over the desk, final program glowing on my laptop screen. Grant's name stood bold, confirmed as Triton's face. My own was absent, a blank space no one outside this room would question. The air carried the faint smell of damp carpet, the kind that rises after a long wet day. I spread folders across the desk edges, feathered from handling. Slack logs printed in faint blue ink, a 401k statement, folded with creases sharp as origami county clerk minutes, stamped with an official seal. Each piece was a bead. Together they formed the chain I called an evidence ledger. Harlan's words echoed as steady as the rain. Hold the line. Reliability wasn't loud, he'd said, but I could make sure silence had teeth if anyone tried to bury me further. I scrolled through my drafts. An email waited subject for record. Attached were files too ordinary to draw suspicion alone, but together, undeniable. I cued a short video message too, voice steady, despite the tremor in my chest. This is only to be opened if questions arise. The words were calm, measured the way reliability sounds when stripped of all pretense. Beside the keyboard lay my pocket watch. The lid hung useless hinge, snapped in two, ticking faintly like a heartbeat with arrhythmia. I touched it once, lid swinging loose, then turned back to the screen. A drawer on the side of my desk held another ledger, names of sailors and officers I'd mentored through the years. I flipped the notebook open, pages filled with cramped handwriting. Each name was a reminder that reliability had rippled outward, even if unseen. My fingers hovered over one-page ink smudged where I'd pressed too hard, and for a moment the noise outside dimmed. The rain tapped faster, urging. My cursor blinked on schedule send. Breath steady. I clicked. The whoosh of the program committing was almost inaudible, but I felt it like a latch sliding into place. No turning back. Silence followed thick and heavy. I leaned back, watching the glow of the screen dim as the laptop shifted into standby. The watch ticked beside it, broken but unyielding time still carrying forward. Then the phone buzzed against the desk. A new message. Simple Direct, Pentagon Auditorium C, 0930. Ceremony. The glow from the notification cast pale light across the rain-slick glass. I picked up the watch. The lid swung useless, but the tick kept time. The countdown had begun. The air in Auditorium C smelled faintly of floor polish and nerves. Rows of uniforms filled the tiered seats, shoulder-squared ribbons gleaming under sterile light. A red recording bulb glowed at the back of the room, steady and merciless. Applause swelled as Grant strode to the podium, his shoes crisp against the stage. The giant screen behind him carried a live feed ticker crawling in white letters. Commander Grant Mercer, probable commander of Triton. My name was nowhere. The words scrolled on repeated, echoed across the livestream chat projected faintly on side monitors. Didn't his brother retire one message, read a careless aside that still pressed deep. Grant adjusted the microphone posture trained to command cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began voice smooth, polished the kind of sound that gathers headlines. He spoke of readiness of drills completed, of precision in the face of challenge. Each phrase rehearsed, each pause calculated for applause. And the audience obliged, claps, nods, camera shutters clicking like distant rain. I stood in the wings, half-shadowed pocket watch in my hand. The lid swung loose hinge, tapping faintly with each shift of my grip. Tick against tap, a rhythm no one else could hear. The PR officer from months ago hovered near the aisle tablet, raised smug smile carved across his face, as if he were already writing the narrative. Flashes burst from the pit where journalists crouched, the smell of hot bulbs mixing with the polish. I caught sight of Mom in the front row, stone-faced, her fingers locked on the edge of her seat. She didn't clap when others did. She didn't look at me either, though I was close enough to see the tired lines at her mouth. Grant spread his arms, confident sweep. "Triton is not just a program," he said. "It is a testament to presence, to leadership in the open." He let the word linger open before smiling to the cameras. Behind him, the live stream chat scrolled faster. Comments in quick bursts. "He's the right man for it. What about the brother? Thought he left service years ago." The words burned sharper than applause. I shifted closer to the curtain edge, the smell of stage dust mixing with the sharper tang of floor wax. My hand tightened around the broken watch until the hinge clicked again, metal knocking against bone. Whispers rippled through the rows, a wave I could almost feel. It wasn't doubt in Grant's polish, it was doubt in the certainty of the story. Too many headlines, too few questions answered. The noise dipped just for a moment into uneasy silence. Grant cleared his throat, forced smile tightening as camera flashes flared brighter, catching him from angles less kind. From where I stood, I saw Harlan seated near the center. His back was straight, his eyes unblinking. He hadn't moved during the speech, hadn't clapped, hadn't whispered. Now, as Grant leaned into his closing line, Harland rose. Deliberate, slow, heavy with intent. His gaze locked forward, cutting through the murmur, cutting through Grant's spotlight. The red recording bulb kept glowing. The crowd stilled the whisper cut short, and every camera began to turn. Harlan's gravel voice broke through the last threads of applause. "Command of Triton." He said each syllable steady, unyielding, will fall under Rear Admiral Elias Mercer. The air cracked with silence. The giant screens froze on Grant's face. Smile's stiff eyes caught mid-blink. The red livestream bulb glowed harder, as if the world leaned closer to listen. In my hand, the pocket watch clicked, firm hinge newly repaired. The sound was louder than any applause I'd ever known. I stepped out from the shadows of the wings. The sterile light washed over my uniform, the cloth sharp against my shoulders. My shoes struck the stage with deliberate weight. My voice carried even without raising it. "Precision," I said, gaze sweeping rows of uniforms, not provocation. "That is how we hold the line." The words landed in the quiet like pebbles breaking still water. Then the first row stood officers rising in sequence boots, scuffing heels, snapping. Salutes shot upward, crisp fabric rustling in a single motion. The sound echoed across the auditorium, sharp as breaking glass, then rolled through the tiers like a wave. Hundreds of arms raised, uniforms bending to acknowledgement. Grant's pen slipped from his fingers, clattering against the floor. The sound was small, but in the silence it cracked like a gavel. His jaw-clenched face hollowed of its easy confidence. Mom gripped the armrest so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her shoulders were rigid, trembling eyes fixed not on Grant, but on me. Harlan stepped aside, holding a folder bound in blue. He opened it and read, "By decision of the Defense Board, effective immediately operational command of Triton is hereby transferred to Rear Admiral Elias Mercer." The words carried more weight than his gravel tone. They were binding, final, carved into record. Flashbulbs popped from the press pit. The livestream ticker scrolled in a rush, Mercer named Triton Commander. Shock announcement. Silent record revealed. The hum of cameras layered over the echo of salutes, a chorus of recognition louder than cheers. I returned the salute, slow, precise arm, steady, as the watch ticking in my palm. My throat was tight, but my words were even. I will lead with clarity. I will lead with trust. And I will lead with silence, when silence is stronger than noise. The wave of salutes settled into applause, measured heavy, the kind meant to last beyond the moment. It filled the sterile space with something almost human, almost warm. In the front row, Mom's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Her eyes shone with something between shock and pride, a bridge built too late, but built all the same. Grant met my gaze. His jaw was still locked, his face stripped of polish. For the first time in years, he had nothing to say, nothing to claim. Only silence. And in that silence, the watch in my palm clicked, firm, time itself, acknowledging what voices never had. The applause still rang in my ears as I slipped into the Pentagon corridor, the heavy doors closing behind me with a muted thud. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed unevenly, one flickering just enough to make the shadows stutter. The air smelled of old varnish and long nights, the kind of hallways built to carry secrets. Footsteps echoed too quickly behind me. Grant's stride, once so sure, now uneven. He caught up his voice raw. "You never told me." I stopped, hand resting on the cool wall. My reflection in the glass panel beside us looked older than I felt, lines deeper in the harsh light. I turned slowly. "You never asked." The words hung there, simple and quiet, but they landed like weight. Grant's jaw flexed. He tried to summon that grin of his, the one that carried him through ceremonies and cameras. It faltered. His ribbons caught the fluorescent glare, bright but brittle. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I slid it out, thumb tracing the cracked screen. One message glowed. "Proud of you." Just 4 words from Mom. No emojis, no qualifiers. The hum of the lights seemed to swell around me. Grant saw the glow, looked away. His shoulders sagged as though a uniform alone could no longer carry him. He leaned against the wall, voice dropping. All this time I thought I was the one holding the line. His laugh was short, bitter. "Turns out I never saw yours." I didn't answer. Some truths don't need echo. At the end of the corridor, Harland appeared, his silhouette unmistakable. He held a note card in one hand, edges-worn words scrolled across it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Now build beyond yourself," he said. The card disappeared back into his pocket, but the mantra settled into my chest like a stone finding its place. Grant's eyes lowered. He exhaled shaky. Then almost under his breath, he whispered, "Respect." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The corridor stretched long ahead of me, the hum constant, the varnish smell lingering. My phone buzzed again, another message. This one, an invitation. Wharton Veterans Hall, keynote address. I closed my hand around it. The linoleum scuffed under my shoes as I started walking, watch ticking steady in my pocket. The air in Wharton hung heavy, thick with August humidity. Flags outside the courthouse drooped against their poles, and the old clock chimed 5 minutes late the way it always had. Its clang rolled across the square almost in rhythm with the pocket watch ticking in my hand. For the first time hinge firm, it kept perfect time. Inside the Veterans Hall, barbecue smoke curled through the rafters, mingling with the scent of cedar walls and coleslaw. Folding chairs scraped against the wood floor as neighbors, old classmates, and sailors long since retired shuffled into place. Grant sat quietly beside me. No grin, no theatrics, just presence. Mom sat a row back, shoulders softer than I'd ever seen them, her gaze steady. When the moment came, I stood smoothing the paper in my pocket, though I no longer needed it. "This isn't about command," I began, voice steady, but low. "It's about those who serve in silence and don't get their names in lights." The hall hushed, the hum of an oscillating fan the only interruption. I spoke of the sailors who fixed what broke before anyone noticed the planners who held the line without applause. Then I announced the mentorship fund scholarships and support for quiet servicemen and women who, like me, built their lives in shadows. The applause that followed was measured not thunderous, but it carried weight, the kind you feel in your ribs. Nods from men in ball caps, soft murmurs of approval. A few veterans dabbed their eyes with handkerchiefs. It was enough. Later, over paper plates piled high with brisket, my niece leaned across the table. Her hair was tied back, eyes lit with teenage certainty. "Do you command ships?" she asked. I smiled. "Yes, and people." She grinned, wide, shook her head as if it were the wildest thing she'd heard. "That's kind of badass." Laughter bubbled around us, light and real. A local photographer gathered us outside for a family photo. Grant stood close, Mom at my side. When the print was delivered weeks later, It found a place above Dad's mantel, replacing the old picture of Grant shaking hands with a senator. For once, we stood side by side, equal. As the evening wound down, I stepped onto the porch. The courthouse clock chimed again, crooked but faithful. I closed the pocket watch in my palm hinge, holding tick steady. The sound wasn't applause, but it was enough. Glasses clinked softly as the hall emptied, the sound carrying through the warm haze of barbecue smoke. I turned the pocket watch in my hand, its hinge firm again, the lid closing with a clean click. Justice, I realized, isn't about applause, it's about presence that endures. Revenge would have left me hollow, restoration left me steady. Even when jobs vanish, names are forgotten, or trust breaks, there's still a way to rise and offer something back. A small note in the local newsletter the next day read, "Mercer launches mentorship fund for quiet veterans." And I wonder how many other quiet stories are waiting to be heard, maybe even yours.